Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is, wherever in the world it is that you are. Welcome once more to another live stream of Alexandra Mayer's Live. And this morning, we will be continuing with my page by page reading and commentary of the modern English version of the Bible. This morning, we are going to get into Genesis 14, which is about Abram rescuing Lot. For those of you who have been keeping up with me, you know that Lot was the nephew of Abram. Um, they ruled over a lot of land, some people, they cultivated livestock, and they essentially spawned cities and nations. But problems started to arise as time went on, so that's what we will get into today. I hope all of you out there are having a wonderful morning. I absolutely am. And as a side note, something I wanted to mention for anyone who decides to get into the study of Christianity, the study of the Bible, the reading of the Bible, the critical thinking that is often spawned from examining and reading the Bible. The enemy, in other words, evil, demonic forces, negativity that exist, really doesn't want God's children to learn about God and Jesus Christ and the history of man. In other words, Satan doesn't want you to read the Bible. It's the truth. It's the truth. And often when you do delve into biblical study, the person who's delving into such study very quickly has many distractions enter their life. A lot of things are dredged up from the past to try to prevent the person from continuing their study. Um, all sorts of things are thrown at you, but you must persevere if you want to just learn the message yourself, understand the message, and feel the goodness that the message inserts into your life. And I'm talking about the biblical message. And I mean, I'm barely into my page by page reading of the Bible, but since I've been traversing on this journey, some interesting things have occurred in my life, good and not so good. But many years ago, a woman who was life changing to me, a woman by the name of Shelley Lubin, a woman who planted the seed in me, which made me realize that I wasn't exactly cut out to be an adult entertainer. Um, she told me that when you go into biblical study, miraculous things begin to occur in your life. You see the wonder of God. I remember her telling me that. And she was correct. She was absolutely correct. She's passed on. May she rest in peace. She's someone I'm really glad I got to know because she's someone who many people bashed because she was doing God's work, truly. Even people who claim to be of God bashed her. But I have a feeling that in the end, when we all do meet our ultimate judge, she'll be smiling as the ultimate judge really scrutinizes certain souls and certain spirits who had a lot of downright evil things to say about her unjustly. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get into this. Genesis 14. Abram rescues Lot. In the days that Amraphel was king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, I don't even know if I can say this, Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goyim. They made war with Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemember, king of Zeboim, and king of Bela, that is Zoar. All these were joined together in the valley of Siddim, that is the Dead Sea. For 12 years they had served Kedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. All right, so there's a war going on in the valley of Siddim. In the 14th year, the Kedorlaomer and the kings who were with him came and defeated the Rephaites in Ashtaroth, Karnaim, the Zuzites in Ham, and the Emites in Shaveh, Kirithaim, and the Horites in their hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran, which is by the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to En Mashpat, that is Kadesh, and conquered all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites, who lived in the Hazazon Tamar. One thing I will do, probably not until next week, but I will create a sort of family tree along with the proper pronunciation of many of these names, because I think something that might deter people from reading the Bible, even when it's easier to read versions of English, is the names of some of the key characters. Not because they're overly complex names, but because we're not used to hearing these names, at least within the American culture. So it does get a little confusing and a little hard to keep track and even frustrating. But I'm going to create some sort of a guide to where it's easier to understand who's who, how to pronounce the names, and I think that might clear up a lot of things for a lot of people who are listening to the Bible that I'm reading, because it can get a little bit difficult as we get into all these different men who are mentioned. All right. So let's continue. Genesis 14:8. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, came out, and they joined together in battle in the valley of Siddim against Kedorlaomer, the king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goyim, Ameraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar. 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits, and as the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell in them, and the rest fled to the hill country. Then they took all the possessions of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their provisions, and departed. They also took Lot, Abram's brother's son, in other words, his nephew, who lived in Sodom, and his possessions, and went their way. Then one who had escaped and told Abram, the Hebrew who was living near the oaks of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and Aner, and these were allies with Abram. When Abram heard his relative was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants born in his own house and pursued them as far as Dan. During the night, he divided his men to attack them and defeated them, and pursued them as far as Hobah, which is north of Damascus. He brought back all the possessions, along with his relative Lot and his possessions, and also the women and the people. Go Abram. Abram was awesome. So Lot got into some trouble with this war that was going on in the Valley of Siddim, but his uncle, who essentially served as his father, came and got him and rescued him. That's the kind of uncle you want. It just is. It really is. So that was good to hear. So now let's continue. We're still in Genesis 14. Melchizedek blesses Abram. After his return from the defeat of Kedorlaomer and the kings who had joined him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God Most High, and he blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand." Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people and take the goods for yourself." But Abram said to the king of Sodom, "I have lifted up my hand to the Lord, God Most High, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will take nothing that is yours, not a thread or a sandal strap, lest you say, 'I have made Abram rich.' I will accept only which my men have eaten, and the portion that belongs to the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them take their portion." So yeah, Abram he was good. And that was why he got to lead everybody. So now we're going to continue into Genesis 15, the Abrahamic covenant. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, "Do not fear, Abram. I am your shield, your exceedingly great reward." But Abram said, "Lord God, what will you give me, seeing I am childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus?" Abram said, "Since you have not given me any children, my heir is a servant born in my house." That's interesting. So Abram had everything, and he was a super guy, rescuing his nephew, being fair, solving problems, leading tons of people. But he didn't have an heir. He didn't have a son. I don't think maybe he had some daughters, maybe. And he probably did have children with others who were not his wife, but not because he was with his Sarai. I think that was her name, or yeah, I think her name was Sarai, and she was barren. Oh, well, I'm not a male, but I'm a woman without children, so I kind of relate. I kind of can. So let's see what happens. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "This man will not be your heir, but a son that is from your own body will be your heir." He brought him outside and said, "Look up toward heaven and count the stars, if you are able to count them." And he said to him, "So will your descendants be." Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. He also said to him, "I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to possess it." But Abram said, "Lord God, how may I know that I will possess it?" So he said to him, "Bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. Then Abram brought all these to him and cut them in two and laid each piece opposite to the other. But he did not cut the birds in half. When the birds of prey came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. As the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell on Abram, and terror and a great darkness fell on him. Then he said to Abram, meaning God said to Abram, know for certain that your descendants will live as strangers in a land that is not theirs, and they will be enslaved and mistreated for 400 years. But I will judge the nation that they serve, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. As for you, you will go to your fathers in peace, and you will be buried at a good old age. In the fourth generation, your descendants will return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. When the sun went down and it was dark, a smoking firepot with a flaming torch passed between these pieces. On that same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your descendants I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great Euphrates River, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Kadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Raphites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. All right, so God lets Abram know that he is going to have children of his own at some point. And he lets Abram know what's to happen to his future generations. And I'm sure many of you know that story already. But the next time that we do a page by page reading and commentary of the Bible, we will be getting into Genesis 16. I do apologize that I kind of butchered Genesis 14 and 15 just now due to having some pronunciation issues with the names, but I didn't pre-read these chapters before coming on here this morning, mainly because I'm trying to be very timely. I'm trying to, do a lot in one day nowadays. I try to live an organized life, but I might need to take the time to pre-read these to myself before coming on here. We'll see. We'll see. But I hope all of you out there have a nice day. I most definitely will. And do your best to trust in God, have faith in God. Just keep in mind that there's truth to just about every single religion and spirituality out there. There's a lot of things out there that are real that some religions tend to want to discredit or ignore, but I don't believe you can ignore certain energies, especially when they're linked to darkness and evil, because if you do, you won't see them coming, and you do have to defend yourself. So again, have faith in God, have faith in yourself, and fight for what you know is right, even when people try to convince you not to, if you know it's the right thing to do. Have a good one. Bye-bye.